good to see everyone this morning. I took my mask off because I'm behind this shield, so I won't infect y'all. This is another one of our mayor's meetings, and we have a few faces that I don't recognize, so I'm going to ask that we just go around the room and everybody introduce yourself if you don't mind. We'll start over here with Commissioner Henson.
My name is Grant Henson. I'm County Commissioner, District 2.
I'm Eddie Reynolds, Mayor of Bisco.
Shane Armstrong, Chief of Police, Bisco.
Gene Anderson, Commissioner of Bisco.
Larry Kirby, Interim Manager, Mount Gilead.
Chip Miller, Mayor, Mount Gilead.
Patty Allman, previous mayor of Mount Gilead.
Laura Morton, Clerk, Town of Bisco.
Brandon Holland, Town Manager, Bisco.
Chris Watkins, Sheriff, Montgomery County.
Brian Helms, Communications Director.
Vicki Manus, Tax Department.
Renee Jones, HR, Montgomery County.
Robin Huzzy, Clark County Star.
Mark Maynard, Commissioner Stars.
Wesley Brown, Town Hall.
Philip Hearn, Mayor, Town County.
Okay, as I said, it's good to see all of you here today. And we have an agenda. I hope everyone got one. I think they're out there beside the door, items to discuss, but if there's anything that we need to add to the list, we will certainly do that. So please do not hesitate to bring up any subject that you want to talk about today. I do need to mention that we are recording this session, this meeting. I know that's unusual since it's not a public meeting, but we're here as peers to informally discuss county and town functions. And I agree that with the sentiment that's recording such a meeting defeats the spirit of informality and the ability to veer into uncharted waters when we're trying to find solutions for problems that we all know about. But I agreed to the recording because I want to try and demonstrate for others what I know is the hallmark of these meetings, that we're all dedicated public servants who want nothing more than what's best for our residents, our towns, and Montgomery County. We plan to provide the link to this meeting on the county website so that anyone who wants to watch it can watch it later on. So please do not be hesitant to participate, as we need to show the spirit that we have and that we've had in the past of all of us working together to help and serve others. I realize that we live in a world that's affected by social media, and there seems to be a certain group of people who wish to use that platform to provide misinformation and uninformed conjecture and ill will and hate. The constant presence and activity makes them seem much more numerous than they really are. And while I firmly believe that an overwhelming majority of our residents are not so selfish and mean-spirited, we need to collectively reconfirm our spirit of common goals and common decency and respect for each other. Again, I ask you to forgive the intrusion of recording, and you see we've got cameras all around. And while I firmly believe that an overwhelming majority are not so selfish and mean-spirited, we need to reconfirm our spirit of common goals and common decency. Again, I ask you to forgive the intrusion of the recording and to continue what you've all been proven over and over again, working together for better towns and for a better county. Thank you. So our first item on our agenda is a COVID-19 update, and I'll turn the meeting over now to either Robbie or Mary, or maybe both of them.
Well, being Mary's has not made it yet, I'll go ahead and start. Just so everybody knows, and I think everybody does, we started our testing back in
Get down there and take your mask off, Robin.
Okay.
Look forward to talking to you.
Thank you. We started testing back in June, and to date we have tested 1,130 people, not counting what we've tested this morning in Canada. And Mary has the numbers of total returns that we've had, total testing in the county, and total positives and total recovered. I don't have those numbers, and I hadn't talked to Mary this morning, but we're still doing testing. We're going to continue to do testing as I know of right now through August 21st, and that'll be up to you all whether we extend that or not. If we do extend that, my suggestion would be to, instead of testing in every town every week, testing in every town every other week. So we could, there's a couple of schedules we could do with that, but that's up for discussion. I have masks available for anybody that needs masks. Just let me know, be more than glad to drop some off. There's an issue, some of you may or may not know, there's an issue with our lab in that it's taking longer and longer for our lab results to come back. When we first started doing this, it took anywhere from 2 to 4 days. Now it's taken 2 weeks and sometimes 3 weeks to get results back. I know myself and another, one of our paramedics tested in Bisco 3 weeks ago yesterday. We got our results back on Monday. So that's a deterrent for a lot of folks because they don't want to wait that long to get the results back, but we have no control of that. There's also been some concern over the cost. What we were told from the beginning was that if you had insurance, there would be no cost. And if you didn't have insurance, the lab would send you a bill for $67.50, and we had no control of that. So there have been a few people who had some issues with that, and I understand that. But we have tried to test everybody that came up and encouraged people to test. Those are some of the issues that we've had. And like I said, the last couple of weeks, our numbers have dropped off just a little bit. But I think that's because people don't want to have to wait the 2 weeks or whatever the time frame is. Because if you think about it, if I test today and I don't get my results for 2 weeks, I'm already out of my quarantine period. So there's really no need for me to test. If I'm not having symptoms, there's really no need for you to test anyway. You know, there could be some discussion on cutting back on who we test, but that's a discussion to be had, you know, at a later time. Yes, sir.
I thought the county received, if I'm not mistaken, it was $700-something thousand for the testing. Why is the $67 not covered under that? Why would the county not pay for that instead of the individual having to pay for it?
Mayor, you're right. We have contacted the lab and told them to reroute all bills to the county. And so we are covering the $67.50 as we discussed when y'all wanted to do the testing in every town. As Robbie said, right now it's somewhat of a farce. You're testing people. CDC says if you're positive, do a 10-day quarantine. We're not getting test results back for 3 weeks.
Yeah. So you basically do, like he said,
It's an exercise in futility.
right. It's pointless if you have to wait 3 weeks for your results.
And that's really where we need your feedback today. We posed this question to the Board of Commissioners last meeting. You know, it's a nationwide problem. There is a shortage of the agent that they mix. I mean, I'm not a scientist here, but whatever chemical they put into the swabs to see if it, you know, is positive, they don't have that. And so there's hundreds of swabs sitting in the refrigerator over in Charlotte or wherever this lab is, waiting for this reagent to come in. The Board of Commissioners thought that if you were to pull back, one option was let's just test people that are high risk, elderly, compromised immune system, etc., or those exhibiting symptoms. Let's try to do our part to stop the push of tests to the lab by just sending ones that we think need to be notified quickly. obviously, our numbers, the amount of people in Montgomery County is just a drop in the bucket of nationwide, statewide. The Board of Commissioners felt that we would send the wrong message by telling people, if you're not showing symptoms or you're not at risk, stay home, just don't come in. I'm sure if we polled the 5 mayors or councilmen members that we'd probably get a different answer or a different opinion. But right now, that's what the Board of Commissioners had asked Robbie and Mary to do, is just continue to test whoever wants to be tested. Make sure the lab is sending the bills to us. If you know anybody that got a bill, that paid the bill, we will reimburse them for that.
Okay.
Just have them call Robbie, come up here, we'll take care of it. So I guess for right now, unless y'all feel differently, we're just gonna stay that course. It's unfortunate, but the system was just not set up for this mass influx. System's never set up for a pandemic. Robbie, appreciate it.
Yes, sir. Any further questions? I mean,
Chairman Robinson asked us to speak to our meeting with the Hispanic clergy and their concerns. It was a very positive meeting, but it kind of went in 2 different directions. At first, it seemed to be that they were saying that the population as a whole doesn't believe in this virus. That it's not real, it's not, and then if it is real, it's something that, you've done something bad to get it. And so there's a real negative stigma to it. And that's hard to combat with us going around, Robbie, passing out masks. Well, if you just don't think it's real, or you think it's witchcraft if you get it, I wasn't prepared for that, because I don't really know how to get that level of education out as quickly as possible. What we did offer was to send the health educators to their churches. And so, unless I'm mistaken, last Saturday and Sunday, our interpreter went out and tried to relay the message about what a virus is, why you need to protect yourself, etc. And then the meeting kind of went into, how can we get more protective gear out to the places and businesses, etc. And so Robbie handed out several thousand masks to them. Again, it was a positive meeting, but that there was a language barrier. When they got here, none of the pastors spoke English. And so then you have me, Robbie, Mary, and I up here that can't speak Spanish, and so there was a barrier. So that's a reality of that community and the world we live in. When there's a communication barrier, you can't communicate. And for a while, we were working through a teenage interpreter. I would do as I normally do, ramble on for 10 minutes, and then her translation would be about 5 words. And I'm thinking, there's no way she encapsulated what I said in 5 words. And so it's a difficult thing. But we're trying. Their population, as you know, a much smaller percentage of population, but a higher percentage of COVID.
Thank you.
Mary, I'm sorry, you want to come and add? I think Robbie didn't have the latest numbers. I think you can guess what we were talking about, which is the backlog at the lab. And from what I saw, the mayor's nodding. They kind of agreed with the commissioners that even though we're not getting test results back timely, to continue doing what we're doing.
Excuse my tardiness. Right as I got ready to get up and walk out, I got 2 phone calls back to back that I had to deal with. So right now, from June 1st to July 31st, we've had 1,062 tests completed through the drive-through. Out of those 1,062, there were 143 positive. there were 26 duplicate collections. So that means people have been tested before. They needed a positive test in some instances to be able to go back to work. So we stopped counting them in that positive. If you look at the state data for Montgomery County, they do a rolling average, and they show us having a total of 601 cases as of August 1st. They report on July 24th that Montgomery County had the highest number of positive cases in one day, and that was 22 cases that they reported. July 28th, there was 21 cases, and August 1st, 16 new cases, and August 3rd, 7 new cases. What I have had Robbie share with you is the updated data. That's also on the county website under the health department. As you can see, if you look at the map, we still have a high number of cases in the Bisco and Candor area. But our county cases are higher, a little bit higher than what the state says. We've had a total of 693, and we've got 511 that are still considered active. We've had 14 deaths. The age range for the deaths, 40, 60, and 80s, and most of these people had some type of underlying medical conditions. We have 9 hospitalized right now. Ages range from 80. We have 4 in their 70s, 69, 50, 49, and 39. And again, they have some type of underlying medical conditions. The health department has investigated and provided guidance for 5 clusters in the county. So if industry or a facility or a business has at least 2 cases, 2 positive cases, it's considered a cluster. So we have been able to provide guidance to all of these industries and facilities that have had positive cases, and they work really well with us. Any questions? Okay.
Thank you.
All right, Vicki, I think you're up next if you want to come up and give a latest and greatest on the tax numbers. I believe you sent all the towns their real values last week, and just wanted to have Vicki here in case anybody had any questions about those numbers. The Board of Equalization and Review has adjourned for the year, so any tax appeals from this point go directly to the Board of Commissioners. There are a few outstanding cases yet to be resolved that Vicki's still working on, but I think most of those are out in the county proper and not in any of the towns. Is that fairly accurate?
We do have a few in Star and Bisco.
Industrial properties?
Yes, 2 of them are. Hopefully we'll have something on those in the next couple of days. Finish.
Okay. So you said Star and Candor?
Star and Bisco.
Star and Bisco. So if you want to call Vicki offline here or after the meeting to discuss who those companies are and what the potential impact would be, I'm sure she'll be glad to discuss that. Does anybody have any questions about the process or the numbers? I'm assuming everybody's seen their numbers.
We've seen the real numbers, but when did you say that we'll get the business, personal property for equipment and that kind of thing?
We sent you the estimate,
Right.
and hopefully in next week to 10 days we'll be final.
Okay.
And we'll send that to you as soon as we finish that.
And DMV, as you know, is always a rolling thing. So it's good to go where you were last year.
I will get with the 3 towns. We also have a change in Troy on business personal property. So I'll get with those later today and tell you what those are, and then can use that to help budget.
Yeah. I think you'll get with y'all on those remaining cases and what the impact could be. And of course, businesses always have the right, if they're not happy with the assessed value, to appeal that to the property tax commission. If the property tax commission rules in their favor, then it's retroactive back. I think we had one from the 2012 reval that we actually didn't get settled by PTC up until about 2019. So it was 7 years after the fact. So those wheels definitely run slow up there. Inexpensive. All right, Vicki, thank you.
All right. Thank you.
Good morning. So not long after the bypass opened south of Troy, we got contacted by several businesses in the town of Troy with a desire to change some zoning around the bypass to allow for billboards, and understandably so. At that time, which was pre-COVID-19, we thought about doing a more comprehensive plan that aligned with our master plan of trying to tap into some residential growth along the river and kind of do an overlay, you know, all the way, including River Road and 24, 27, all the way through towards Bisco. Obviously, that kind of massive rezoning would involve a lot of people and a lot of communication and a lot of people entering this room. So when coronavirus became a pandemic and started having to limit the number of people in rooms, that kind of fell to the wayside pretty quickly. However, now still knowing that there's still a need for these signs and billboards and a desire to direct traffic into the towns, we're still thinking that we could maybe pull off just a rezoning to just commercial that would allow for some billboard use, and not that wholesale, more comprehensive all the way from the lake to the east side of the county, but just maybe just right here around Troy. And if Bisco, if y'all would like to change that too, we can look at that. But more just instead of an overlay district, just sticking with what we got, just a rezoning. It'll still involve a lot of communication, and quite frankly, probably maybe a lot of people, I would think most people would be for it, but it's kind of, we're right there trying to make that decision whether we want to just do commercial or we'll have to wait to do the whole overlay thing if we wanted to. So, interested in your input on that. But do you have anything to add?
Yeah, I will. Troy obviously is most impacted by the Troy bypass. And it is our hope, and I think theirs as well, that one day all that will be annexed and be in Troy jurisdiction and will be commercial industrial property. Until then, we want to lay the best groundwork for Montgomery County. 2427 is our main east-west corridor with the bypass, with the 4-laning from Albemarle to the river, then from the river to the bypass. A lot of folk come this way. One option that Chris mentioned is county just go out and zone everything from Allied all the way over to Holly Hills commercial. If you do that under county zoning, you can do billboards on commercial property, 672 square foot. One or two. What if there's 10 or 12, 14 or 16? If that's going to be a growth area, then we want your impact. The Board of Commissioners wants your discussion, your input on what is the best plan. What do you want it to look like? Obviously, again, Troy is a major player in this, and so Chris is going to sit down and have those discussions. But really the image of our county is everybody's business. 24/27 is a scenic byway. The DOT is not going to let you put up billboards anymore on 24/27. The ruling we got from them, however, is that they consider the old roadbed coming through Troy as the scenic byway. They're not considering the 4-lane bypass as scenic byway, which doesn't really kind of make sense. You leave a scenic byway when you cross the river and then you pick it back up over here. But anyway, now that's where they're going with it. And so the request is from businesses in Troy County, rezone these properties. For the business, for the owners of those properties, it's not going to be an increase in taxation by just changing the commercial zoning. Most of that land is being used for timber. There are a few residences out there, and they'll be taxed according to that present use and the current use. But if it starts being developed in commercial property, obviously those values will go up. But at any rate, that's one project that Chris has got on his plate, and so he will be contacting each of the towns for their input about the image of the county. I mean, do we want to try to develop that corridor? Do we want to try to keep that corridor as clean as we can and push growth more to the towns? Same way between the area from Biscoe to Troy. The county has had 3, I think, rezonings on that stretch of road in the county proper to commercial property. Again, the county wants the growth in the towns. That's where we want the businesses, that's where the infrastructure is, that's where they have to be for our own vitality. So again, that's just one of Chris's projects that I wanted just to bring to everybody's attention, so when he reaches out to you, you'll kind of know the scope. And then I think he wants to mention our water issues here that continue to plague us.
So the first time in recent history, and the first time since the state's been keeping records, at least logs of algae blooms, we've had algae bloom in Lake Tillery and Baden Lake. Never happened before that I can find anyway. But and so the ultimate fix for this, and that's what's causing the taste and odor problems. I don't know. It kind of comes and goes, comes in cycles. Mostly it happens during the day. It starts reacting, and so probably in the morning time is about the time that most people are tasting it or smelling it, depending on where you're at in the county as the water moves through the distribution system. But the algae blooms is the cause of the taste and odor. No algae is getting through our treatment plant or the filters. The water is perfectly safe to drink, but those aesthetic problems remain and do go through the filters and can't be filtered out. The fix for it is activated carbon, and it's just you can add it by granular or by mixing a slurry. Unfortunately, our plant is not permitted to feed activated carbon, and so we're having to go through the state, and the state is working 1 day a week in the office and the rest of the time out of the office, so permitting is becoming really slow. However, we've been working with them, and they have approved us to do a trial run, which basically, a testing period. Usually lasts 1 day. We're going to stretch our testing period out for a month if we have to, if we can get our hands on the equipment. New equipment for this is, I'm being told, it could be as far out as December. Well, the algae bloom will be over by then. So we were kind of, stumped for a while, but we have been able to, luckily, to find some equipment that we could purchase used, and we're working on doing that now. It's the old treatment plant at Wadesboro. So they have 3 of these things. It's just a hopper and a mixing and a screw conveyor that allows it to feed at a certain rate. So hopefully we can get that implemented pretty soon, and we can see some improvements. If not, we'll just see natural improvements as the algae. So that daylight doesn't, times getting smaller during the day, and these algae, it'll stop blooming. So either way, the problem will come to an end, but in the future we'll be better set up to handle it. Any questions about that, what we're doing? We're also making some major repairs at the water plant right now, kind of unexpected. We had a leak in our finished water line and had to bypass it. So if you went to the water treatment plant right now, you'd see a lot of equipment and a massive black HDPE pipe that we're using as a bypass line to go from our bottom of our filters to our clear well. We have a chemical feed project that has been awarded. Raw water, the mechanical and pumps and electrical systems in the raw water pump station is also awarded and will be under construction in the next month probably. And BPS, our main pump station 1, is getting totally redone, basically a new building, new pumps, everything new, just replaced and demolition of the old one. So we've been able to secure 50% funding for all of these projects. 50% grant funding, sorry, for all these projects, 100% for total, but 0 interest loans. Pushing $7 million, I think, for everything we got about to start or have completed recently. So, and thankfully we hadn't had to pass any of that on to as far as rate increases to towns or any of our retail customers either. Any questions?
Cheers, thank you.
Thank you.
I'd like to start with maybe some good news. The market on the lake is through the roof. We did our reval, we're on an 8-year cycle, and effective January 1st, 2020, what was the assessed value. If we would have been on a January 1st, 2021 cycle, you would see significant growth. Everything that touches water is gold right now. It's amazing that the COVID has really flipped a switch about how people vacate and what their habits are. RV sales, boat sales, you can't find a kayak or canoe, and the lake sales are moving like beach properties have, in that it's going to vacation short-term rentals. And the value of the properties are now what it can produce in income. And so you're seeing properties increase 30, 40, 50, even 100% in value. That it's no longer what can the market hold, or how many people have enough disposable income to go to Montgomery County and buy a second home on the lake. What it is now, the value of that home is what you can rent it for 12 weeks of summer. If you can get $3,500 and you can bring 10 folks, and so you do the math, you're going to stay a week, and it's $3,500 for the whole house, and you bring 10 people, $350 a night per person. That is so much cheaper than a hotel room. You go Raleigh or Atlanta or anywhere else, and you pay $300 a night just for one hotel room and one person. And so people are changing the way that they go on vacation and how they want to stay. And they don't want to stay in a hotel with strangers. They want to get a home and bring a family. And so if you can rent a place for 12 weeks and you can get $3,000 a week, then you can generate $300,000 in rental income, or whatever the math is, $30,000 in rental income for 10 weeks, I guess, at $3,000, then that's the value of the house. And so we are seeing a lot of growth on the lake, which in turn is going to mean increased value, which in turn means increased revenue. Right now, with the latest reval numbers, just in real property, just in land and structures on land, 1 cent on the county tax base brings in $280,000. You compare that, say, to the town of Star, where 1 cent brings in $3,900. So $3,900 for 1 cent of taxation versus $280,000 of taxation. So I guess that's good news, is that the lake properties are selling so well. The commissioners have laid out a plan as far as job creation to try to with the 4-laning become a area for commuter traffic, for residential development. Yeah, most folks that are going to be commuting to Charlotte can't afford a lake house now, not on the water, but you're seeing those developments like Tilly Tradition that are really sell a lot of houses. If you haven't been out that way, you ought to ride through there and the number of houses that they're building and selling. And so hopefully we'll get that commuter workforce, get enough of them, and so jobs and businesses will come locate in the towns, et cetera. So I guess it's good news that the lake is so good in terms of our long-range economic plan. The bad news is it continues to be truly a story of the haves and the have-nots. Most of the county value is on that water. 1/3 of the households in Montgomery County are receiving Medicaid food stamps. 1/3. We have a lot of people who are struggling to make ends meet in Montgomery County. The short-term rentals, I mentioned them as that's the way of the future and what's going to be happening. That type of business brings its own issues. People coming in from outside, they are not native here, they're just here for a week, they act differently. What does that mean? Policing issues. Folks up in Green Gap Shores are very upset that their neighborhood is going short-term rental. There's not very many places to stay and enjoy the forest, and so in Green Gap, you're surrounded by it. You can just, run, shoot, jump, whatever you want to do, 24 hours a day. And the residents are upset about it. And they're wanting the county to ban short-term rentals. Well, some places have tried that. Asheville, for example. Asheville's problem was affordable housing. People come in buying these little houses downtown Asheville, turn around, put it on the rental market, generate tens of thousands of dollars of income. That becomes the price of the neighbor's house now, because that's what it can bring in. Well, working class folks can't afford the houses anymore. So Asheville went in and said, look, in this area here, in this area there, not going to do it. We got to be able to keep affordable housing for the rest of us. Now, Montgomery County, we obviously have affordable housing and a lot of land that's away from the lake. But if the county were to take an action like that, like is being requested, what does that do to the land values? I just said, all the land values are skyrocketing because of that income potential. And so that's one decision that the board's going to have to deal with. Our county's unique. If you've been out to Green Gap, if you've been out to Halderwanger in that way, it takes you 45 minutes from right here to get out to that area. So if somebody calls and says somebody's driving a 4-wheeler at 3 a.m. and they're shooting a gun and scaring my kids and my dogs, well, it's going to take a deputy 45 minutes to get out there, and you know what they're going to find when they get out there. Then they're going to turn around and drive 45 minutes back to Troy. By the time they hit here, the phone's going to ring again. They're back, So it's and what do you tell those folks, And then they start saying, we're paying all the taxes in Montgomery County. What are we getting for it? 45 minutes later, somebody shows up. It takes 45 minutes for the ambulance. And so, at any rate, the good news, growth. The bad news is you got problems with growth. We continue to struggle in a lot of ways. It's been 8 years since our last reval. I think the numbers the School of Government or the economists put out is that a healthy town, a healthy county is going to grow 2 to 3% a year. If you use that equation, say it's been 8 years since the last reval, then 3 of our towns have negative growth. Not a good trend. I think you all know that the Board of Commissioners tries to help the towns where we can, try to push growth that way. I think y'all done some tremendous things, like with the volunteer fire department and the plan that we put in place 10 years ago, and then just the recent revisions to try to help defray those costs. We work together, library services, tax services, et cetera. And so we realize that county belongs to the towns, and we're here to help each other. But again, at the end of the day, the values on that lake, and 1 cent of just the real property value brings in $280,000. When you add DMV and you add business personal property, it's well over almost $400,000 what 1 cent on the tax base has. And so trying to defer services across the county as a whole eases the burdens on the towns. The county wants to incentivize town growth. It wants to incentivize residency in town. We recognize that the high town tax rates disincentivize growth there. If you're living in Star, and I don't want to pick on Star, I'll say Candor. Mayor, what's the tax rate in Candor?
We get about $5,500.
I mean, you're at
tax.
56,
65.
65 cents.
65.
And so if you live in Candor, you're paying 65 and 62 for the county. So you're at 127 per hundred of value. That's a high tax rate. And so we want to do everything we can to help that. I'm not an alarmist by any means. I have been here in this building when the high service pump blew apart 9-10 years ago, and we stopped in that minute producing water. None done. We couldn't produce water. Had to go to 2 of our largest employers and tell them just shut it down. And they did, shut it down. I go down to the water plant now, the floor has separated from the wall. Concrete floor has sunk from the walls. I came to y'all, 8 years ago, and I said, look, we got to do some major improvements to the water system. I mean, it is on its last leg. And so y'all agreed to raise the water rates. We have done multi-million-dollar worth of repairs. Everything we've done has been essential, well past its expected life. And the county has tried very hard not to pass on our additional costs to you, because we know you're in the same boat. And that you would just have to pass it to your customers. We have gone out on these projects. Yes, Chris has worked hard to get 50% grant money, but the fact of the matter is he's increased the debt load more than it's ever been. But we are not wanting to push those costs on, so we are trying to stem that tide as best we can. Again, trying to incentivize the towns. We have done rate increase to our rural customers and not to the towns. So we try to work together. And so I've been here when all our social workers, and that's one of our biggest responsibility as a county is to take care of the children and the older folks. Adult protective services and child protective services. And I've been here when we have been down to basically no certified social workers. We always band together and we find a way. You say, Matthew, it sounds like you're not doing a very good job if you let the floor fall apart and you're letting the high service pump and you're not got any social workers and whatever, but it is a struggle for us. Y'all know that. Y'all know how poor we are. We know we just said 1/3 of the people are on Medicaid and get food stamps. But at any rate, we work together and we try to avert any emergencies. So when the sheriff said, Matthew, I've lost 7 deputies. I have lost 40 in 4 years. Everybody around's paying more. Got to do something. And we have given raises. I think when I started here, the deputy salary was in the low to mid-20s. And so we're up to $32,750. And I'll stop here and say, our employees do a fabulous job. Our town employees do a fabulous job. we value each and every one of them. Each one of them is instrumental and crucial to us delivering services to the people of this county. And we have some fine people. You know, at any rate, I know how we do it, because I talk to the managers and I talk to the mayors. They call me at the budget season, what you gonna pay deputies? We go up, y'all go up. Y'all go up, we go up. I mean, we know what's happening here. You look at these numbers that Vicki provided us, the reval provided us, the reality of the situation, and we realize that some of our towns are struggling to keep pace. Struggling for those essential services. I think the sheriff counted that there's 92 law enforcement type positions in the county. I think that works out to 1 for every 200 and some, which is high. But again, when you're having to cover 24/7, 365 in this area, that jail, I mean, it takes. So at any rate, the sheriff is going to request to the Board of Commissioners a dramatic pay increase for law enforcement. I'll stop to add, we all know the national climate. A lot of people are leaving law enforcement. Folks are not joining that profession. So we all know what the circumstances are. I asked the sheriff, I said, you know, one, it may fix your problem to get deputies and detention officers more pay and detectives, but I've got 250 other county employees that are the same one. When you know, water plant requires by law a certified water plant operator sitting there behind moving the water. We've got 2. And it's been that way for over a year. We're having to cobble together part-time people and contract people and every warm body we can that has a certificate, because our rate of pay, nobody's interested. You can get $10,000 more 30 miles down the road. You know, it'd be easy for me to say to Chris, all right, Chris, $50,000 is what we're going to pay a water plant operator, just send the bill to the towns. Let them pass it on to the customers. You know, let's have a water bill in Montgomery County that, you know, $100 a month for 1,000 gallons of water. Well, you know, how's that going to incentivize growth? And so, we, like I said, I'm not an alarmist, and I tell them, hang in there. Just keep going, because, you know, brighter days in the future. Lake growth, we're going to get some commuters, some people here with some job skills. We're going to get some jobs, and just hang on. We're going to make it. Just keep that hump running. You know, we'll make it. But I understand where the sheriff's coming from, and I understand if, with all elected officials, you don't want something to fall apart on your watch. You know, the sheriff, I got some shifts now with one person. What if somebody has a whatever, I can't respond? That weighs heavily on him. And not just from a political point of view, he's not running for election, it weighs heavily on him because he's a caring, decent person and he wants to serve the people of Montgomery County. But he's at the table to the Board of Commissioners with, you've got to provide enough funds to get the workers to do it. If the Board of Commissioners supports that, you know what position it turns around and puts you in. You're going to have to keep pace. We don't like or want to play a game, and that's what we're doing right now. I'll steal from you, you steal from me. You know.
I got a question.
Yes, sir.
I don't like the fact that you're accusing the towns of stealing. And I just want to know how many towns actually contacted you.
Chip contacted me to talk about, and Chip raised his hand there. You take, and I didn't mean stealing from the standpoint of some cutthroat game. Again, I think, and I know you're new mayor.
No, that doesn't matter if I'm new or not. I've been a commissioner for 4 years. So I may be new as a mayor, but I'm not new as town politics.
Right. Due to this setting and this environment, that I am here to serve the towns. I will do anything that y'all want me to do. I'm trying to convey that I want to help in whatever way
You still
possible.
didn't answer my question. I asked how many towns contacted you about a universal police force
Which time, Mayor?
in the last year.
In the last year, Chip Miller in town of Mount Gilead. Over the course of our manager's mayor meetings over the last 6 years, the subject has come up dozens of times
From who?
from all the towns.
Not from Bisco that I know of.
Well, Mayor, you wasn't there, so you
Okay.
don't know. That's correct. Chip, did you want to mention something?
Yeah, let me speak to that. First, I'd like to say that I did contact Matt a couple of weeks ago, and a week or so ago. And the reason I did is that we had started this conversation, I don't know, 2 or 3 years ago when Mayor Roy made this, started a roundtable discussion with the mayors to try to figure out ways for our towns to thrive and to promote growth in our towns and sustainability for our towns. And that was a roundtable discussion that started a few years ago, and we were all trying to identify how can we move forward? How can we incentivize people to move to our small towns and remain in our small towns? And we started that conversation, and then, it was kind of dropped over the last couple of years. So here recently, I'm still concerned about sustainability of our towns and moving forward in the future. And then, more I thought about it, we've got an excellent police department in Mount Gilead. We've got an excellent police chief. What I'm concerned about, I got a chief that may retire in the next few years if possible. Then where am I gonna go? Where am I gonna find another replacement with that kind of experience and the kind of job he's doing for our town at this point? So I called Matt and said, I'm still concerned going down the road. I'd like to pick that conversation back up. I've never seen a model, anything to look at. So I'm the one, I guess I'm the guilty culprit that started this. But I asked Matt, I said, what's the status of that conversation? Do you guys have a model or something we could even just look at, just to consider? And Matt told us, Mayor, we do not. And he said, I will certainly see what we can do. And so I appreciate that. So I want to say, to be clear, Matt, what's going on social media, what I've seen and heard, Matt is not the one that started this. And I think it's very unfair what's floating on social media trying to blame him for this conversation. I just asked, is there a model out there? Is there something we can look at? And let me be clear about this. And I'm going to be meeting with our police officers tonight to reaffirm them. Their jobs are safe, and we appreciate what they do. It's just a conversation that I think is worth having to see, is there a model in the future that all of us consider that could be a win-win for everybody? And I want to be clear about this. I'm not willing to take to my board any kind of initiative unless I think that it is something worth considering and it is a win-win for everybody involved. It needs to be a win-win for our law enforcement officers and hopefully in better salaries, better training. It needs to be a win-win for our town citizens. Maybe we can reduce our tax rate and maybe have some incentives for these young families to stay in our town limits. Right now, as Matt mentioned, these tax rates I think are high. I live in town of Mount Gilead. I pay 2 taxes, county and city. I can afford it. There's a lot of young families that can't afford it, and they're not living in the town of Mount Gilead. So, I'm just concerned about the sustainability of this. So anyway, I just want to say, it did not start with Matt. I just asked for the conversation to be picked back up, and let's see where it goes. Thank you.
Well put, Mayor. But again, I feel like it's my responsibility, and I would expect the same from any of the towns. If y'all came in and said, look, we're going to make a major increase in law enforcement salaries, that you would give me a heads up on it, because we're going to have to do the same. That's the only conversation that's been started, is sheriff saying, I'm going to demand that I cannot provide services anymore. I would expect my board, when I tell them that, to say, well, Matthew, have you talked to the town? Matthew, how many law enforcement? Matthew, what is the other towns paying? What are the other counties paying? That's the process of gathering data. ask the sheriff in that process, can you think of any other models that would try to raise our salaries? I mean, we're gonna have to get the salaries raised. I mean, I think we all realize that.
I
Yes,
got
sir.
something else I want to mention. I did some number checking too, and in 2018, the sheriff's department left $73,000 unspent. In 2019, it was $159,000 left unspent. And in the fiscal year 2020, right now, there's $245,000 left unspent. Why could that money have not have gone to raises for the officers, for the deputies?
Thank you for pointing that out.
And why was this not put in the paper? You know, all our budgets, what our officers make, everything's put in the paper, but none of this was put in the paper. So you're not giving our citizens the whole truth.
I disagree. I think the point to that is our department heads, unlike in days of the past, when it was a scramble at the end of every fiscal year to go out and spend money on things it doesn't need, that the collective attitude of the county is, how can we keep the tax rate low? We've not raised the tax rate. The Board of Commissioners hadn't raised it. These departments only spend what is absolutely necessary. They do a tremendous job, and that money is what turns around and builds new schools, repairs old schools. That if they don't save that money, you don't have that growth and you don't have that fixing of problems. And so it's not a race to spend our budgets. I mean, that used to be the mentality around here. Social services, let's go out and buy all new computers.
Well, if you want to go that route, your sheriff's, when he started, he was making $63,000. Now he makes $75,000. When you started, you were making $115,000. Now you're making $124,000 plus a $6,000 car allowance. So, but your deputies haven't got a significant increase.
And again, Mayor, you're wrong. Our deputies have had a larger percentage increase than any other departments except for social workers who've had an even bigger increase in salaries. So,
Then maybe the reason they're leaving isn't the money. Maybe it's other things that are happening within the department. I mean, maybe that's.
We've been increasing salaries. It's not kept pace with the market. And forecasting it down the road, the market's going to keep going higher and higher. You know, as the numbers the sheriff put together, when you're looking and you can go to a surrounding county and make $13,000 more a year, you can't say, well, but hey, we've increased you $8,000. Bottom line is, I can get $13,000 more by going across the county line. To your point, yes, I think that there's always workforce issues for some people, and some people leave because of disagreements. But holistically speaking, when all of our employees are making less than surrounding counties, there's a drive to go to those other counties, and that's where they're going to.
Well, I have a question. So I know you presented the lack of what's occurring with the sheriff's department. And you stated about the lack of people that they have that is on the squad as far as, and as well as the travel, right? So all of those issues that you brought up, and I know that the Mount Gilead mayor stated that he was the one that contacted you regarding the county policing. So I'm trying to figure out, so if the sheriff's department is having the problems, and if Mount Gilead is having the issues, why not focus on what your problems are on a personal level before bringing all of the rest of the towns in on it? Because as far as Troy goes, you know, that's not something that we've even discussed as far as the one policing. And I understand the different things that are down the pipeline, but looking at it, I don't quite understand if it's something that the sheriff department is having issues with. Why is that being projected onto the towns as a whole, rather than looking at what Mount Gilead is going through and settling some things between the county and Mount Gilead?
Excellent. Who has brought it to the towns? What has happened here is the sheriff has said, I've got to increase salaries. I want to go to 38. I want to go to 40,000 on year 2. Okay, Sheriff, what do you think we have to gather here to make this presentation to the board? Who do you think we need to inform? Do you think that you could think of any other models? That's all that's happened is an internal conversation in preparation to go into the Board of Commissioners. Nobody's projected anything on anything. Yes, Mount Gilead said, we're still interested, but there was never a drive or focus on the town. It's a request from the sheriff to raise salaries. The fact that that document got shared, that is talking points, when you come in, as you would want your manager to do, and Greg makes a presentation, Greg, is there any other options? Any other discussions? What's the data, Greg? You don't take him at face. I mean, I take Greg at face value. He's a fine fellow. But you want that. So that's what's happened here is the sheriff has come saying, I want more salaries, and him and I are doing our due diligence to make a presentation to the Board of Commissioners. And the fact that social media, you know.
Well, hey, one other thing on that. That document that come out, that leaked out on social media, had all the towns included in it before any town manager or any mayor was contacted, other than Mount Gilead. So you included us in a plan without us knowing about it.
Again, if you're going to ask the county in one model to start taking over cost, you mentioned towns, Jimmy Blake and Roy Manus came to the county about 3 years ago and just said, look, y'all just need to cut us a check. County just needs to, by per capita, just cut a check for help us to make our expenses. If you're going to go to the County Board of Commissioners and you're going to discuss this plan to raise salaries and it comes up in a broader discussion, you're going to start with this board because that's who you're asking to take on expense.
Well, let me just say something. We just had a meeting about this billboard stuff, and you wanted to include all the mayors in that. So you telling me a billboard's more important to the mayors and the town manager than a universal police force?
Mayor, if me and you met this morning, and we
I
started...
wouldn't meet along with you. I'd have my town manager with me or 2 of my commissioners.
Mayor, you're being obstinate. If this discussion got started a few days ago, I'm not going to, as soon as the sheriff said, I want salaries, run up to Bisco and call you up and say, hey, no, I'm not. I mean, what is the expectation here? I mean, I don't know why the belligerency is, I mean, again, we're trying...
I'm just asking a question.
Well, and I tried to explain that. There's no animosity. There's a sense of willingness to want to help each other. There's a sense of when the sheriff wants to raise salaries for law enforcement and knowing that's going to have a trickle-down effect or a ripple effect, you start having conversations, you start gathering information. I mean, I don't see why are you accusing us of something?
So is this conversation that we're having today, is the purpose of this meeting for you to get our input on how we feel about the universal policing? Is that the purpose of this meeting?
No, Mayor. The purpose of the meeting is to explain what happened because knowing that you're getting phone calls, knowing that you're having to answer social media requests, and you have, as the mayor just said, no idea what's going on because you haven't been informed.
So this
because
is for informational purposes behind what?
Yeah, the sheriff has zero model to propose.
Okay.
The sheriff is not saying he wants to work with the towns.
Right. Okay.
I mean, none of that has, we haven't even begun the first step of a 1,000-mile journey, even if we want to take the journey. He may not want to take the journey.
Okay.
The Board of Commissioners may not want to take the journey.
Well, what do you want out of us today? You want us a yes or no?
No, it's not a yes or no. It was an explanation as to what had happened. That pure and simple. You have the right to know. I could have went and called all of you and met with all of you, but it's better to meet as a group. I mean, that's what we have been doing in the past. But again, you know or should know, I have nothing but a desire to help our towns in any way possible. I don't like just pushing cost on the taxpayers. If we can, as the mayor so eloquently said, if we can come up with a solution that benefits us all and costs the taxpayers less, I think that's a job well done. The sheriff's in the room. Sheriff, do you want to add or subtract from anything I might have said?
Good morning.
Good morning.
How's everybody doing? I just completed my 39th year in law enforcement. Started here in Montgomery County in 1981 as a deputy sheriff under Evan Wallace. Some of you may remember him, some of you may have never heard of him. Been fortunate in that my time with the sheriff's office gave me a good foundation to move on to state government. I retired and then been blessed to be the sheriff here in Montgomery County. I'm not seeking re-election again, so this has no political ambition or platform in it. It's just nothing more than an opportunity for a discussion as to where we're at. During that 39 years, this topic has come up every 2 or 3 years. It came up first with Sheriff Wayne Wooten. It came up again with Jeff Jordan. It's come up several times through the years where the towns have said, is there any way that we can collaborate and have a better outcome at a cheaper expense? Through contract services, every county commissioner since I've been, the sheriff has approached me informally and asked about county policing. I don't know if they were pro or against, but they've asked me for my input. Would you describe it? Would you tell me how it works? Would you tell me why it would work here or why it wouldn't work here? And one of the fundamental things you have to understand is a county police is not what we're proposing. A county police would be 2 separate models, such as in Gaston County. Gentleman in the back, the interim mayor, manager Matt Gill is nodding his head. He understands that. In Gaston County, you have a county police, and you still have a sheriff's office, and you still have municipal police departments. So you've got layer upon layer. So a county police really wouldn't work here. That would be a burden. It would add more to the cost. What we're talking about here, well, we're not talking about, but what we're discussing in the road is, would there want to be a discussion of a collaborative police where all law enforcement's under the sheriff's office. And so through that effort, we can save money through not being siloed, and that savings be passed on to the employees that work there. And then, of course, I think the ambition is to reduce taxation to the town. That is for discussion for y'all to hammer out. But, you know, through the years, the sheriff's office and under my term has been here for the towns. In Mount Gilead, you know that you had a viable police department, and a month later you didn't. Took us 6 months to rebuild it. Years ago, I think Cantor had the same thing. And so these things do come and go. And so with that, I came to Matt. None of us, Shane, your police chief, none of us are really competitive with the counties around us. Agreed? Salary-wise. Salary-wise, we're not competitive. And so we're losing people around us quite frequently. So the only competitiveness is among ourselves. We're competing and swapping people. And so if we can figure out a way that we can pay our people more and not have them go somewhere else and still provide the same level of service or greater level of service through collaborations, we're all going to win. Again, it's not my ambition to take over anything. It's not my desire. My only desire is to provide for you an unpolitically opportunity to do whatever y'all want done. If that's what needs to be done and y'all want to do it, I'll be happy to hammer it out in my last 2.5 years and make it right. If that's what you don't want to do, then we won't do it. But the bottom line is, we're not competitive with salaries. Again, I've been doing this 39 years. And I'm not an alarm ringer either, but I am ringing an alarm. The problem of it is people don't want to go into law enforcement. National sentiment does not make people want to roll up their sleeves and become a cop. And those that are close to retirement are retiring. I've had several retirements just because of national sentiment. Those that can find an opportunity to drive a truck because of the economy is springboarding back and they can make more money doing that, they're driving a truck. For example, you had an officer in Mount Gilead left to be a truck driver. He's called me 2 or 3 times wanting to get back in law enforcement. Guess why I haven't come back? Can't pay him enough. So what I am saying, national sentiment has reduced the number of people that are in the profession. The competitive job market outside of law enforcement is competing. The number of people going into the LET is less. And so what I foresee is pure supply and demand. There's going to be a huge demand and a low supply. Montgomery County is also a little bit unique in the fact that we're a rural county, but we have 6 law enforcement agencies. We have 5 municipalities, and we have a sheriff's office. If you look down to our south in Richmond County, bigger county, more populated, they have 3. Sheriff's office, Rockingham, Hamilton. You go to Wadesboro, Nancy County, you got 2, Wadesboro and Sheriff's office. So when you look at us as a whole, as far as the population, we're rurally populated, and we have 94 full-time public safety billet positions when you count detention, which is something you have to count. We run a jail. So that's the problem, supply and demand. Everybody has their office to run. You have the town of Bisco to run, he has the Bisco Police Department to run, and I have the sheriff's office to run. So I came to the manager and I said, we are not competitive. Our HR person is sitting in the back, she can tell you, we post a position online, we get very few applicants, and most of those have low skill levels. What we've done through our years, since I started here, is we've hired people in police departments and sheriff's office. We've trained them. Many of them have stayed, made it to retirement, but a lot have turned over. As town clerk, if you sit back and think of the number of people that have come through the doors, if you remember the number of people that has come through the profession, it will blow your mind if you sat down and pencil it all out. So, when I approached the manager, it was with those concerns that we have to look after the sheriff's office, who looks after the people of the county, to include your towns. He in turn said, well, I think we need to rediscuss this issue of county policing because it has reared its head again. So that's where this all came from. I also want to say that collaboration is not nothing new. For a number of years, you've collaborated with things like water. We don't have 6 water plants. You've got 1. We've collaborated with things like ABC. You don't have 6 liquor stores in the county. You've got 2, and that money's shared throughout the county. We don't have 6 ambulance services. So there's a lot of collaborations to provide services that are already going on. And I think this discussion is nothing more than an opportunity for us all to see if we could talk about a way to collaborate to provide the same level of services or greater under one umbrella, and that cost savings be passed on so that we can pay the rank and file people a salary that would then be competitive to the counties around us, so that we're not losing our people as we move forward. And we're all losing people as we move forward. So I thank you for your time. I hope that explains anything. And again, I don't have a dog in this fight. I'm your messenger. Okay? Thank you.
Chairman, do you want to add anything, or you want to go around and let the, yes, ma'am.
There's some confusion. I think the main thing is, who will control all the law enforcement? Who will be the big boss? Will it be you, or will it be him? Because the sheriff's department, who's your boss?
The people that elect the sheriff.
No, who do you report to? The Department of Public Safety?
No, ma'am.
Who?
To the people of Montgomery County.
Well, the sheriff's department, I thought, was to serve the court. And then I thought the police department was to serve the people, protect the people. But I thought the sheriff's department was a court.
No, ma'am.
Well, where am I going wrong? I mean, half the people are telling me Matthew's gonna have control, total control of all the law enforcement, and you're going to, but you're the sheriff's department, you're an elected official. So what happens?
The sheriff's office has many functions. One of the functions is to serve the papers of the court. They also do registered sex offenders. They also do gun permits. He's also over the detention center. And he also is responsible for the public safety outside the municipality. So if there is a theft, if there's a domestic violence, if there's an assault, the deputies respond to that. The same as officers respond in town. And so he has an overarching thing.
Who oversees
If we
his
go
department?
with this consolidation, you're gonna get rid of half the sheriff's department, is that true?
No.
Well, the perception is reality. Everybody can agree with that. The perception right now is nobody's listening to anything because everybody is terrified that you're defunding the police.
Right. And
So the timing is wrong for this.
right, but again, if I could just say, the only thing that happened is the sheriff has come and asked for salary increases to up the funding for police. The uninformed conjecture and the wildfires that are spreading, he doesn't have a model to present. The model that he did reference to would be under the auspices of the sheriff's office, not under me. No, I wouldn't control the law enforcement piece. But again,
If the sheriff's not doing a satisfactory job, who fires him? Who fires him?
people.
The people do. How do they do that?
They unelected.
Unelected. That's gonna be kind of confusing. How do they handle that in Mecklenburg County? Does the sheriff's department have authority over the Charlotte Mecklenburg police?
You've asked a very good question, and if
Okay.
you don't mind, I'll
And I
answer that.
really have, I want to know the answer because I'm hearing all kinds of things.
Okay, you've asked a very good question. Charlotte is not a county police agency.
It's Charlotte Mecklenburg police. Why?
That's only a name, ma'am. It is, you still have McGill, you still have Matthews, you still have municipal police departments in Mecklenburg County. It's just that Charlotte Police Department covers the area that's not in those incorporated areas, and there's not a county police, okay? And they still have a sheriff's office. So to answer your question is, there is no model. But the model of collaboration, if you don't have two separate agencies, the county police department and the sheriff's office, which we can't afford, that's doubling the effort and the money, correct? So the only way you can collaborate and cost save is to put it under one group where you've got territorial jurisdiction. And you understand territorial jurisdiction, so that everybody can go anywhere and make an arrest and perform law enforcement functions. Under that model, it would be under the sheriff. The sheriff doesn't answer to the county manager, he answers to the people of Montgomery County. If you're not satisfied with the sheriff, you elect another. Is that simple? Does that answer your question? So in Mecklenburg, you have a sheriff that runs the sheriff's office. You still have a police chief that runs the Charlotte Police Department. They simply have the name Charlotte Mecklenburg, but there's still municipalities that have their police departments, such as our efforts being in Matthews. So they're not really consolidating, they're adding layers of services over there. But to answer your question, who would run it, there is no model right now, but if the model you pick would go into the sheriff's office, and the sheriff would run it. If he doesn't do a good job, he or she would be unelected. Okay? Thank you.
I have one more question.
Sure.
So I know you said that this was an option, it was something that was up for discussion. Have you all come up with other models or other alternatives if this is just one of the few discussions?
That's exactly the process that we were starting on. In its most infancy, first discussion with first commissioners, not even to the board as a whole, first discussions. As elected officials, as the county commissioners, they can spend money, taxpayer dollars on anything that they deem beneficial. I'm going to throw first thing out of my head here. Let's say the county says, like it did with fire trucks, that we're going to work some agreement, that handshake agreement of mutual aid, and the municipal officers are going to serve outside their areas and under the auspice of a sheriff and some contract they make up. And in return for that, the county's going to buy all the patrol cars. Going to still have Candor name on it. Still going to have Troy name on it, but the county will fund all the cars. Would that help financially? Would that allow you to take that savings and pay higher salary? I'm obviously not a commissioner, I don't get a vote on that, but I was just giving an example. I mean, there's whatever little contributions to help each other, there's bigger contributions. Again, we go back to Montgomery County's unique in that most of our value is on the lake. The people that are watching at the lake are horrified that I just made that statement. We don't want to pay for that. You know, but again, it's trying to help each other, just trying to have options. That's what it's about, because we do struggle to provide infrastructure. We collectively, with our water and sewer systems, we ought to have $100 million in the bank. If you look at your depreciation schedules for that infrastructure and the cost of replacement, I can tell you one entity that doesn't have any money in the bank in public utilities. You know, and those struggles are going to continue. I mean, until we have growth. But again, again, I apologize for everybody having to deal with it and get upset. It was what I felt was my responsibility when the sheriff come to me to say, you know, we need to think about the county as a whole, all county employees. We need to think about the towns. We need to think about whether options are available. Because it impacts us all. Did that answer your question?
Yes, sir, it did. Thank you.
But if you're looking at the issue of policing as a whole and what's going on in the world today, which I don't see those issues to that degree here, if you're looking at that, what I think the citizens want is to have and know the police that are in their communities, and they want to have a better relationship with them. Not something where especially if you're going to say you're going to then put it under the auspices of sheriff, then how are the people in the different towns, what control do they have? What not control, but how do they deal with the issues that might possibly come up? If you have someone in a position in your police department that is that are doing things that you don't necessarily think should happen, then what's what repercussion do you have? What?
Yes, ma'am. Those are excellent points, and all of those points, if this road is pursued, if it's ever pursued, all those questions have to be addressed. Just like they have to be addressed if we never do any consolidation. Again, it's trying to help the towns, trying to get the tax rate lower, realizing that if we raise salaries, you raise salaries, where can we help? That's the process. Mayor, do you want to start with the updates from town? And I don't mean to interrupt.
Well, I just want to add a little bit more. First, I want to say thank you to all of our law enforcement agencies in Montgomery County. Sheriff's Department, each municipality. Thursday, I feel like I come from a unique position because I have served on a board where I've seen 4 out of 5 full-time police officers fired in one meeting. With the sheriff, the former sheriff in the hospital, and really no plans of how we're going to take care of the people. And the county did help out. That was wonderful. There's a lot of fear out there now. There's social media. There's a national election coming up. There's a lot of things going on. People spreading. There's a lot of moving parts. I've had a lot of phone calls, a lot of messages since Thursday night, since that post was put on. I was contacted by Grant Henson, and there was an apology, and I appreciate that. Since I was elected mayor in 2013, we put forth a lot of effort to get officers in there, update the vehicles, update the equipment, update everything that's needed in that department. And I understand where Mayor Miller's coming from. I think we do have to be forward thinking. And I represent people who are not on that lake. I represent people in the town of Cantor that, you know, a lot of them are that 1/3 on Medicare, Medicaid, and the surrounding areas. I listen to the radio, and I know these police officers, the mutual aid and what the sheriff's department and what these town officers are doing and what they're having to deal with. And to be honest with you, there's not a lot of time for public relations and things because they're short-staffed. They're running from one call to another. They're running all over. So there's issues with the sheriff's department. I understand we've all been through turnover, things like that in departments. It's going to be challenging for everyone in the future. But I think, as the lady said earlier, timing, some of the things that I've tried to take some things and listen to people, because everywhere I've been since Thursday, I've been approached. And it's not just policing. There's a lot of different concerns. And fear, when I say fear, I'm not just talking about policing. There's a lot of different issues in the county. Coronavirus, there's people that have their homes broken into because we do have drug problems, especially on the east side of the county and going into Moore County and Richmond County. There's theft, there's drugs, and the latest issue is, you know, the school decision. You know, and I think it's great to keep the children safe, but I also see and have heard from many people who have really kind of been in a crisis because they don't know what they're going to do. How are they going to work for a living, to try to pay their bills, educate their children, no internet? Will this be on TV? You know, I've had that question. There's a lot of questions I can't answer. So I think planning, a lot of the citizens that I talk to in town, they are comforted in knowing that we have, even though we only have one police officer, we have 4 full-time police officers in Cantor, but we have someone there 24/7, and we can get someone to that house in just a matter of minutes. And, you know, I think we need to realize too, we're not Mayberry, but we're a small town. But our law enforcement people are not always just, I mean, there's a lot of other things that our guys are doing. And it's not only mutual aid with the Sheriff's Department or the town of Bisco or other things. There are fire calls. They're going out to assist on fire calls. They're going out on EMS calls. You know, there's maybe lifting assistance. You know,
There's a lot of different things, there's a lot of different moving parts on this. And Matthew, just to be honest with you, I think some of the things that have happened in the past with the county bringing things in up under the county, you know, maybe the Chamber of Commerce, the TDA, the EDC. You know, I've been elected official for 19 years. I still don't have an understanding of those, the EDC, the Chamber of Commerce, and the TDA, where we're at right now in the county. So I think perception may be, it hits social media, it flies, that the county's trying to take everything in and control everything. And we have some fine elected officials here, we have some fine public servants here. You wouldn't be here if you didn't care. There's going to be challenging discussions that we're going to have to talk about and address moving forward. We're going to all have to do it in a professional manner. And we need to realize that, you know, there's a lot of things. There's positives and then there's negatives. And taking everything in under the county from these towns that the citizens have paid and bought for, and all this equipment and the money and the time that's been invested in all these officers, there's a lot more to this. It's really got to be something that's, you know, sit down and analyze really well. And I'm happy to be a part of this. Montgomery County is a great place to live. But, you know, I've always said it, I realize the money that we're bringing in over here on this lake. But I'm telling you, the family and the single wide trailer on the county line, we've got to provide these services for these people. And we got to do all we can. And, you know, I think the county, it's just challenging times for everybody. But it is interesting to me that the sheriff's department turning back in money every year, you know, that may be money that can be used to buy more vehicles, buy more equipment, give officer salaries and things like that. I would like to follow that and see how that goes and see what, you know, moving forward, what the plan is and be a part of the process, you know, to see what's going to happen. So we have a lot of issues facing us.
Well said, Mayor. I agree completely. And again, that people being frugal with taxpayer dollars, I can't speak for the Board of Commissioners how they vote, but I think, again, my opinion, that they will take funds and raise salaries. I think you can, you know, I'm not going to put the two that are in the room right now on the spot of, are you going to, what's the figure you're going to go to deputy salaries, you know, starting October 1. But I think they will address those things. But very well spoken, Mayor. I agree. Mayor?
I don't have anything, but I appreciate just the, you know, because once again, social media can, you know, it can build up things, and it left us in a place of wondering, like, what's going on. But I appreciate this moment, this meeting, so that we can get clarification that this is not something that is being voted on. This is just the start of discussion. But I would like to see other options as well. And that's why I'm grateful for this opportunity to just get that clarification.
Yeah, and as y'all pursue similar options, you know, make sure you include us and et cetera. And so, thank you, Mayor. Mark, you want to speak for Star?
I don't have anything.
Okay. Thank y'all for coming. Mayor?
I'm good.
Chip?
I just want to say I appreciate the opportunity to be here, you know, be able to start this conversation. I also want to mention too, about 7-8 years ago, just before I ever was elected mayor, just a citizen of Mount Gilead, I saw where Mount Gilead lost their whole police department all at one time. And I'll never forget, and will always be grateful to Sheriff Watkins for stepping up and providing the town of Mount Gilead law enforcement support. He had to juggle a lot of schedules, had a lot of overtime. I remember during that time, I wasn't involved in local government whatsoever. I was just doing my daily job and living in town. But I can't remember a time I didn't drive into Mount Gilead, I didn't see a county sheriff's department car there in the middle of town somewhere to show the citizens of Mount Gilead they had law enforcement support. And I'll always be grateful to Sheriff for that. And I think that just goes to show what kind of collaboration and support we do have in this county. Sheriff, I know I told you, thank you, to send me that.
Yes, sir, thank you.
Thank you, Matt.
Thank you. Any other council members want to speak?
No, it's just very interesting to hear what is being talked about, we're not being forced to go into it, but it is a good discussion.
Thank you. Dottie, you want to have the final word?
Again, I'd like to say thank you all for coming. I think this has been a good discussion, and I just want all the people in the county and the towns to know that we're not trying to keep anything from you. There is a work in progress, as Mayor Allgood was talking about. There's like a first step, and then you expand on that to have something to present, and that's what we were trying to do, is just get the first step done and then expand on it. But there's nothing that we would ever do if we didn't have the town's approval and joining with us in something that's going to affect the towns. So I just want you to know that, but thank you all for coming, and if you ever need me, my number is on the website as far as I know. Give me a call. If you have any questions about anything you see, give me a call. If I don't know the answer, I will certainly find out for you. And y'all are welcome to come to our commissioners' meetings at any point. So thank you all again for everything.